we have stumbled across one thing that makes all the difference in studying the Bible. So we're truth groups, which means we gather small groups of women around the Bible to study it for themselves and to learn together. We call it a learning community. Now, it's so interesting. As we've been getting feedback from these small little circles of women, the one thing we keep hearing over and over again is women are struggling to ask questions. Now, asking a question is almost the most important thing to do as you're trying to study the Bible. So I think there's some reasons why this is a struggle for us. And Galen was talking to a group of friends, and she said this, and I couldn't agree more. Take a listen.
Just heard something, or I read something earlier this week. I was reading something that was leadership related, and I loved the way, for whatever reason, it just clicked with me. But it was a very short phrase that said, asking questions challenges assumptions. And I've always struggled to come up with questions. I usually have to look at some verses first before I can come up with questions. But I had read that earlier this week. So when we were doing our Ask as a group last night, I had that kind of like aha moment of like, oh, well, what have I always assumed about God's presence? Okay, well, let me ask a question about what I've always assumed to be true. Life and experience teaches us to assume certain things about Scripture and about God. And so an assumption is a great place to start by asking a question. Is this really accurate? What I believe to be true.
Asking questions challenges assumptions. Did you hear that? I think that is profound. And here's why. Because I think when we think about asking questions about God and or the Bible, we think we're questioning God. That is not what we're doing. When we're asking questions as we open up the Bible, we're challenging our assumptions. And assumptions are things we've either heard secondhand. We couldn't prove it by holding up the Bible. We don't know why we believe it. We just assume it to be true. And when we take our assumptions and turn them into questions and then go to the Bible and say, God, show me what is true. What happens is, I think we're afraid our faith will weaken, or we'll find something that will be like, oh no, something I thought was true my whole life is not true. But what happens instead as we dig into the Bible is that our faith deepens. What we're afraid will happen, which is our faith will weaken, it does the opposite. Our faith deepens as we ask God to show us, to teach us how to study the Bible. And we cannot learn anything that we already know. And so I hope this week, friends, as if you're in a truth group, that as you're asking questions and you're having trouble coming up with one, turn your assumption about who God is, about what his presence looks like, about what calling looks like. Take your assumptions and turn them into questions and see what the Bible actually has to say about it.